so you want to get into reading. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. Today's video is going to be all of the book recommendations for if you are a beginner reader or maybe you want to get into reading. It is the new year, so maybe your goal is to read more in 2024, and I thought I would compile a bit of my personal recommendations for books that I think would be good to get you into reading. So this is gonna be recommendations for a beginner reader, or just if you want to read more, or just if you want like fast-paced book recommendations. So my stipulations for this book that I would consider good for a beginner would be somewhat shorter, on the shorter end of things, and then also fast-paced. So whether that's just like the plot is really fast or the chapters are short, yada yada yada. That's what I would consider a good book for beginners. So I have a little over like 20 books that I'm going to be recommending here. And before I get into the recommendations, I do want to say that I have talked about most of these books before, so it might be a little bit repetitive there. And these are also probably on like everybody else's list too. So it's nothing like too new, I don't think, but I just thought I would put this out there. But hopefully you can find a new book maybe, and hopefully this is helpful to somebody. Okay, so I'm gonna be splitting this up into different genres for our categories. So we're gonna start off with a romance. So the first book I'm going to be talking about today is going to be The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is about a girl named Olive who has to convince her friend that she's doing okay because she just got broken up with. So she ends up fake dating her professor, which is Adam, and they have to fake date and act like they like each other. This is also a STEM romance, but has like a fun science element with it too. You've probably already heard about this one, but this is really, really good. It was like blowing up on TikTok last year, or maybe it was the year before, but for good reason. This is a good, solid romance. And if you end up liking this one, she has two others as well that kind of follow that STEM. If you like that, she also has Love on the Brain and Love Theoretically. I would say these are just like cute, easy, fluffy romances that are addicting, hard to put down, I would say. Especially this one. This really got me into reading when I just started. And then moving on to one of my favorite authors, we have Miss Emily Henry. So I would recommend all of her books, but specifically to get you into reading, I would recommend Beach Read or Happy Place, or both. This is my favorite book of last year. It was just perfection, and this one I did also read at the beginning of my reading journey as well. Okay, so this is about our two characters, January and Augustus, who are academic rivals. They're both writers. They end up making a deal with each other that they are going to write for the other person's genre. So Augustus is going to write something happy, romantic, and then January is going to write something more like fiction-based, science-ish, whatever, and they'll see who is the best and whoever wins. That's just like glazing it over, but this book was, I think, one of the first books to ever make me cry. It's very, very good, and Emily Henry has a way of writing where it's like romance, but it's also fiction, I would say. Makes you think a little bit more. This was really, really good, and it makes me think about my beginning days of being a reader. And Happy Place, like I said, this is my favorite book of this past year. This is about Wynn and Harriet, who were recently engaged, but they ended up calling it off. But they're going to their happy place, which is all of their friends' like beach house in Maine. And so Wynn and Harriet have to pretend that they're still together in order to make sure that everybody's happy, because this is going to be the last summer that they are doing this. Again, this one just makes you want to just hug it to your chest. It's so good. Again, the romance was really good, but also just the whole, like, this book talks a lot about friendships, and it's just so sweet and so good. You're gonna notice I don't have a whole lot to say about stuff except for just so good. But if you like those, People We Meet on Vacation and Book Lovers are two others by her. But I would say these, for me personally, were a little bit on the slower pace, so I would recommend for faster, these two. Next up, we have the Twisted series by Anna Huang. I've only read the first two, and I have these like out of order here. I've only read the first two, which is Twisted Love and then Twisted Games. This one is Brother's Best Friend. This one is Bodyguard Romance, and both of these books I literally ate up. I truly don't think I've ever read a romance book faster than when I read both of these. It was like one sitting, two sittings. And I know this one gets a lot of hate, which I can understand, but I love it, and I don't know what that says about me. But these ones are a little bit more, like, less fluffy, a little bit more spicy, but I do think they have really good plot as well. I really don't like books that are just spice. It's just not personally for me, but this has a good mix of spice and plot, which I really like. But yeah, so if you like these, Then you continue with the series, and then Twisted Hate and Twisted Lies, which I am excited to get to. The next two books that I have kind of go hand in hand. If you were to ask some people, I don't know, I think they're both good separately, but I have Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren, and then I also have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. Do kind of have similar plot lines. I do think both are really good and really fast paced. This one I literally read in a single sitting, and that's why I consider it good for the beginner, because it was just so quick and good. Like, I literally could not put this one down. Generally, they're both kind of like a second chance romance, friends to lovers kind of vibe. This one does take place over the summer, obviously. And this one I can't remember. I don't think it's like super summery. I do think they're both really good and they do stand alone. When this book came out, there was a lot of people saying that it was like copy and paste of this one. I think they're similar, but I think they do stand apart and they're good just on their own. I really do think so, but I need to do a reread of these. They're just so good. Okay, so then the last book or books that I have for my recommendations for romance category is going to be the Never After series by Emily McIntyre. Specifically, the book Hooked. Literally had me hooked. I read this on my Kindle, and it was the first book that I read on my Kindle when I got it for Christmas, and I literally could not put it down. I was so obsessed with this. It's like a dark romance, and all of these books are retellings of fairy tales. So Hooked is Peter Pan, Scarred is The Lion King, Wretched is Wizard of Oz, Twisted is Aladdin, and then her newest one, I think it's called Crossed. I think that one's like Hunchback of Notre Dame or Notre Dame. I don't know. I don't really know about that one, but specifically I really loved Hooked. It's really fast paced and I was just like obsessed with it. Like, I could not put it down, and I think it was fun too because it was kind of like my first dip into dark romance. So if you were interested in that, it was so good. It's a Peter Pan retelling and it's Wendy falling in love with Hook. Alright, so then our next category that we're going to go to is our thrillers, and this is the one I'm most excited for because I feel like this is where a lot of my faster paced book recs come in. I feel like thrillers are good to get you into reading too, just because they typically are faster paced, but these are the ones that I think are great for beginners. So I'm going to start off with my favorite thriller author, which is Riley Sager, and his most recent book, which is The Only One Left. This is about a caretaker who has to take care of an elderly woman who supposedly murdered all of her family, which was her mother, her father, and then her sister as well. But she can't talk. So while she's there taking care of her, elderly lady writes notes to her, like letters to her over the typewriter, and that's how they communicate with each other. And this one, if you want a twisty book, maybe a little too much twist, I don't know, that's up to you, this is the book for you. This was literally a plot twist like every other chapter, it felt like, and the chapters are short. This is very fun. That's all I'll say about it. But if you end up liking this or books like this, Riley Sager has a very big backlist with a ton of other really good books. Some that I have here are Home Before Dark and Lock Every Door. But all of his books are really good. But if you're looking for something fast-paced, fun, plot twist, Riley Sager is the one to go to. And an author that I feel like has been blowing up lately, especially on TikTok, is Frida McFadden. And I think this is the book that got her there. So this is The Housemaid. This is about a girl who ends up being a nanny or a housemaid to a family that needs her, and the wife is kind of trying to sabotage her, but not everything is what it seems. So this one is really good because the chapters are super short and they always like leave off on a spot where it makes you want to read the next one. So I really like this one. And then another one by her that is really good is Never Lie. This is probably my favorite more than The Housemaid, but this is about a guy and a girl who end up going to a house to look at it because they're house shopping, and it ends up being a psychiatrist's house who is missing currently. They're there, they end up getting snowed in, so they have to stay there, and the girl ends up finding some tapes in a closet of the psychiatrist and her patients, and things get a little cuckoo from there. But this one really had me on my toes, and I did not see the plot twist coming. And usually I can have like some sort of idea of what it's gonna be, but this one really blew me out of the water. All of Frida's books are on Kindle Unlimited as well. The next book I have is They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. I feel like I don't see a ton of people talking about this one, but this is really good for a like fall read because it takes place at a college. So it's kind of like, it's not dark academia, but it definitely takes place around that time in the fall. And this follows two girls. So one girl is a professor at the school, and she also partakes in murdering people Yay, fun. And then you're also following one of the students there who gets herself kind of wrapped up with her roommate and all this good stuff. But the plot twist in this one is so much fun. I did see it coming, but it was still good. You know what I mean? The chapters in this one are super, super short. This is super fast paced. It's like 3 pages a chapter. So I would very highly recommend this one if you've not read this yet. Next up, we have No Exit by Taylor Adams. A great read for this time of year in the winter. This is kind of like a thriller action book as well. So this follows a girl who ends up getting stuck in the mountains at like a rest stop because it's a blizzard, it's snowing, nobody can leave. And at this rest stop, there's a couple other people there with her, and then she notices a young girl in the back of one of those people's cars. So stuff goes down from there, and this one is really fast paced. You just want to keep reading it because you want to know what happens, and it's like, this one has a lot of action, and I'm just like thinking back to it because I read this kind of a while ago, but it's really good. And there's also a movie on Hulu of the adaptation of this, and I think it was pretty well done. It wasn't perfect, but I thought it was pretty good. Another book that is good for the winter is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This is about a guy and a girl who are kind of trying to save their marriage. They're on their last wits with each other, so they end up getting this vacation to this beautiful, like, secluded house in the middle of nowhere. So they go to this house, but then again they get snowed in, so it's very good for right now. And they're thinking that they just randomly like won this trip, but then it kind of comes to light that this is not random, and there's some people that are lying, some things happening. And this is, again, super fast paced. The chapters are really, really quick, and it also goes back and forth in timelines from now when they're at this house and then previously, like talking about their marriage and stuff. And it's also a couple different point of views, so it's really interesting. There's also a dog in this one. I think I'm not describing these books super well, but just know that this is really good. Okay, now I feel like if you have ever heard about reading or like looked into reading, Colleen Hoover has probably popped up. That's what got me into reading, so no hate, no shame. But I do think I've moved on from her books, but there is one that I would recommend if you are starting out, and that is Verity by Colleen Hoover. This is that type of book that will make you stay up all night trying to finish it because you just want to see how it ends. Ending of this one, it's one that you want to stay up for. It's one that you want to read. This one follows our girl Lowen, who is a struggling writer, and she ends up meeting this guy who wants her to ghostwrite for his wife because her wife got into an accident, and so he wants her to like finish out her series that she was writing. She says yes because she's struggling, she needs money. She goes and stays with their family, and then she, you know, starts writing, does the process. While she's looking at her like manuscripts and stuff, she finds a different manuscript talking about her life, and it's a little spooky, a little scary. The book is really crazy, really fun, a little bit dark at points. So, but yeah, if I am going to recommend any more Colleen Hoover books, it would just be this one. Next up is my second favorite book of last year, which was None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. This one kind of has like a, not convoluted, but kind of like a different storyline. So this is following two girls, Alex and Josie. They end up meeting at a restaurant because they are both celebrating their birthday, and they figure out that they're birthday twins. Alex is a podcaster, and she does episodes on women who have like done a lot to change their lives and turn around for the better. The two girls kind of end up chatting at this restaurant where they meet up, and then Josie's like, oh, well, I'm about to turn my life around, so maybe you could follow me. Kind of like all you really need to know about it. So you're in two timelines. You're in the current, and then you're also seeing a Netflix documentary about this situation, and it's called Birthday Twins. So it is really good, and the title really speaks for itself. None of This Is True. You leave off and you're like, I still don't know what to believe. And this book is something I'm still thinking about after reading it, which says a lot. If you want something fast, quick chapters, this book is nice because the chapters all start on the right page, so you get little freebie pages as well, which I love. But this is really good if you want to read just a unique and fun thriller. So the last thriller we're going to be talking about is Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica. This one really surprised me when I first read it. I didn't think I was gonna like it as much as I did, but this is a very fast-paced thriller. So this is following a town where people keep going missing. So first it's a girl named Shelby, then it's a girl named Meredith and her daughter Delilah, and it's all like in the same place and things are just odd, and then the case goes cold. Then 11 years later, the daughter Delilah shows back up, and so it kind of engages everybody into figuring out what happened in the past. And like I said, this is very quick, very fast-paced. I will say the first chapter in this book is quite long. It's like 40 pages, but then after that it's really, really quick, and the pages are, and the chapters are like 2 pages, and it follows different point of views, and this was really good. Okay, that wraps up our thrillers. Next category I want to talk about is gonna be young adult. So I do think young adult books are good if you're starting to read, because usually young adult is a little bit shorter and the font seems to be a little bit bigger, and it just seems like to be a little bit quicker paced. But I don't have a ton for this one, I just have a few. First off, I have the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I'm sure you've probably already seen about these books and I've already talked about them. I've only read the first one so far, but there is 3 more, and then I think there's a novella in this series. But in short, this is basically like young adult Criminal Minds. So it's about these 5 teenagers who make up the Naturals, and they all have a specific gift that helps them figuring out cold cases. So then they get recruited by the FBI and they figure stuff out from there. But I did really love this first one. I'm excited to read the other ones, but this is very fast paced. The font is really big, chapters are really short, keeps you hooked. And if you liked this series, then you probably like The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes as well. I like this a little bit more, but I would recommend this one too if you were looking for something that's fast-paced like that. This one's a little bit more less thrillery. It's more just like games and puzzles and stuff like that. The other series I want to talk about for young adult is the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I've only read the first one, but I do own the second one as well. But this follows our main character named Pip, and she is figuring out a murder that happened in their town. Supposedly this girl Andy was murdered by her boyfriend, but Pip doesn't think so, so she makes it her mission, and it's also like her senior project or whatever, to figure out what actually happened, who actually killed this girl. This book has shorter chapters. It also has like mixed media in here too, so it makes it really quick to read. So there's like notes and stuff and maps and all that good stuff, so it makes it quick to read, and if you like it you can keep reading and have even more books to read. So that's all I have for that category. But moving on to our final one, I just have this as other. There's not a lot in here. I have 2 fiction books and then a fantasy. So my 2 fiction books are both Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I have Daisy Jones and the Six. So both of these books are like time period pieces. So this one takes place, I believe, in the 70s, and this one in the 80s, I want to say. This one is about like an old Hollywood star, and it just kind of follows her life and all of her 7 husbands that she goes through. But this was really good, really heart-wrenching. Another one of those books that just got me into reading. Some books that you read and you finish and you're like, wow, I really love reading because of that book. This is one of them that did it for me. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book. This one takes place in the 80s. I might have those mixed up around, or the 60s, 70s. I don't know. I think, oh, wait. Okay, this one goes from the 50s to the 80s. And then this one is the late 60s into the 70s. Okay. And this one is about a band. And I think they're supposed to be like kind of like Fleetwood Mac inspired, I believe. But the entire book is all dialogue. So it's literally just interview. And that's all that it's written, is just interview from all the different characters. And this is so good. Again, I've only just been saying everything is so good, but this I've heard is a really good audiobook because it has a full cast for all of the characters. Since it is written in that interview format, it is really fast paced and again, a heart-wrenching, beautiful read from Taylor Jenkins Reid. Okay, and the last books that I want to talk about in this video that I think are good to start with is ACOTAR. Now, I know it's obviously not like a short little thing, right? So these books are big, not a short series, I get that. But I do think if you want to get into reading and you want to get into fantasy, I think this is manageable. I do think it would be easier to get into just because it is fantasy, but I think it's more heavily romance, this series. So I think it's just a little bit easier to get into and understand. So if you want a fantasy element, I would definitely recommend A Court of Thorns and Roses. This is my favorite series of all time, and this is my favorite book of all time, the second one. So I know it's not short. If you're looking for fantasy, I would recommend starting here because it's so good. Okay, you guys, and those are all of my book recommendations. Like I said, I know I've talked about the majority of them, so it might have been a little bit repetitive, but if you are new here or new to reading, hopefully one of these books will be good for you and just some recommendations to get you into reading. That's gonna be all for this one. If you like this, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss another video from me, and I will see you guys in the next one.